Committee on August 10th, 2017. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Alms.
Here.
Alderperson Hall. Here. Alderperson Morset.
Here. Number 2, discussion possible action on the minutes from July 13th. I'll move for approval.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes. Number 3, parking, discussion possible action on the downtown parking study. And I was suggested that Blake Fry, the Chamber of Commerce president, come in and kind of brief you guys on where direction we're going. We just had another meeting yesterday. You can touch on that too as well, Blake. And then I'll just let you go on.
All right, I'm going to hand out a document.
Remember to state your name and your address for the record, please.
All right.
And your big head's address.
Thank you. My name is Blake Fry. I am actually a resident of River Falls, 1870 Gulfview Drive in River Falls, but I am president of the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau here in Hudson, and have been for a couple years now, along with Andy Crone of Pier 500, serving as co-chair of our parking committee. Was a task force for a long time through the chamber, but we've kind of broken off into very much a working committee. A working committee that really, whose efforts led to hiring Rich and Associates to do our comprehensive long-term parking study and plan for the city of Hudson. We were very, very pleased with the recommendations that came forward in that plan. The one thing that we did not get in that plan was something of a chronological order of perhaps when those recommendations should be implemented. Recommendation number 1 was to build a $9 million parking garage. Went, whoa, there's some smaller stuff in there too. So what we have done as a committee is we have put together what we see as the short-term actions, medium-term actions. So short-term meaning this calendar year, short-term, mid-term meaning next calendar year, and then long-term just meaning exactly what it says somewhere down the line. What's really fun is rarely do you get to go in front of a committee and then before you can even talk about a recommendation, it's been implemented. But I understand the council on Monday took some actions related to the stall markings, which is the short-term action number 1, which is to stripe parking spaces on some of the on-street parking where it was not done before. We believe this is important just because if you do not stripe it, people will park somewhat haphazardly and you lose some spots. So we're so glad the council decided to take that action. Another recommendation that is we believe could be a fairly quick action within the study, and I'm not going to go into deep detail about the different parts of the study, and it is available on the city's website, and I think many of you have the copy of it, are reassigning some different time zones. In the study, it talks about maintaining 2-hour parking limits on the main core streets, but then allowing for longer parking on some of the other less heavily used side streets, all the way up to 8 hours in some other spots. This would be to not only keep traffic circulating in some of the busier spots, but finding places, encouraging employees to park in some of those longer term zones rather than continuing to plug meters right outside the front door of the businesses that they work in. Next one is the recommendation to increase the parking fines from $7 to $10. Next one is the changing the enforcement times until 8 p.m. 7 days a week. And some of this goes back to, and we'll get to some of the technologies that will make this a little more realistic and a little less than maybe perhaps in some of the manpower hours to make this happen. But our peak times are evenings until 8 p.m. and weekends. And these are the times we're not enforcing meters. So enforcement encourages people to rotate, to move on, to keep those spots opening up. So we think it's important not only in terms of revenue generation, but in terms of allowing for parking availability that we increase the hours of enforcement. Right now, and these next 3 items get into some of the technologies as it relates to parking, paying for parking, enforcement for parking, and then the citation process for parking violations. And so Randy had made a mention that we had a meeting yesterday We are in what we're calling our request for information phase. We have been meeting with different parking services, equipment, and providers and vendors. We've been seeing through some webinars, some conference calls with them, finding out the technologies that are available right now and that we might want to implement. What we have been looking at would be moving away from the single meter spaces to more central pay stations. We're all probably familiar with those. We've seen them over in St. Paul, in Minneapolis. The difference that we're looking at would be, instead of a pay per space, would be a pay per plate technology. So there are license plate readers that you can put on front of a vehicle. It could be any vehicle, your 1976 Pinto if you want to. And you can drive around, and this license plate reader will pick up the license plates on vehicles and then connect with a database that will say who's paid based on that license plate. So instead of entering, I'm in space number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's my Minnesota license plate, and then you enter those. And so the technology is able to pick up on that. And so realistically, one individual in a car could enforce parking in about an hour, just driving through town and driving through the parking lots in town. So that's the technology we've been looking at. One of the interesting things that we found out that some people may have known, I was unaware of, is there is not one single company that will sell you the parking, the pay station, the license plate reader and enforcement, and the thing that will print the tickets. They're all different companies. So that's one of our challenges here, is finding technologies that will actually synchronize together with each other. And we're finding out that information as well. So we're doing this. We have one more meeting coming up in September. We're going to be talking to some companies. So far, we've talked about the license plate readers. We've talked about the printing of the tickets. The license plate readers connected database, where you even find out if a vehicle's stolen. If there's an Amber Alert associated with that license plate, it allows us to connect to some national databases. The one thing we are still wanting to do is talk to somebody about the pay stations. And so we'll be doing that in September, getting more information on those technologies. And our intention, hopefully with the approval of this group and the city, is to move forward with a request for proposals in October, with the goal of having technologies ready to put in place next year. Obviously, we just don't see it realistic that we could do it this year with winter coming and the frozen ground, but we see real opportunity to get these technologies in place early next year once we get to spring and into summer. The next medium-term action, and you can see some estimated costs associated with these different technologies. The license plate reader and the technologies associated with that, we estimate at $40,000. These estimates were in the parking study, but we've also really had some of this confirmed as we've been listening to these conference calls and webinars. They had the implementation of the citation management technology, that technology that's either going to let you print ticket, email a ticket, whatever it may be, and then the taking care of the payment process for those fines, right around $25,000. And then the pay stations, the parking study recommends 41 pay stations around downtown, the central business district. I took another look at that map today. I would maybe dispute that. I think that number might be lower than 41. I think we have some pay stations where we may not even want to enforce people to pay for parking. For instance, there's a pay station on that map that has a pay station right in the parking lot right in front of Angels and in front of the athletic club. I don't know if that becomes a pay parking lot. If it doesn't, we don't need a pay station there. If we did all 41 pay stations, that would be just shy of $300,000 is the cost for that. But again, I think we may be looking at a lower cost on that item. The medium-term actions is that we really see the need for having a parking utility or a dedicated parking utility coordinator reporting to the Chief Jensen or the Director of Community Development, somebody who really is the champion of getting all of this done. Who's in the champion of making sure the enforcement is that we're actually following through with the enforcement. We can put all the technology in the world out there we want, but if we're not actually enforcing the violations or collecting on the citations, we're really not making any good at all. And we see this as kind of a phased-in process. And then we also, the next one we see is increasing, another recommendation in the study is increasing the cost of a parking permit. One of the recommendations is that in some of the 8-hour spots, instead of somebody filling the meter for 8 hours, that a parking permit could be used in lieu of paying for the parking in some of those spots. We do have parking permits available now in the city, but with the recommendation is to increase that to eventually reach $360 a year, which is still a bargain compared to what people are paying for parking for otherwise. And then we continue, and we see in that next year as well, converting some of these free lots we have right now to paid parking lots as well. The goal you see there, the long-term action, is to create revenue that could cover the debt service associated with a parking ramp. The study recommends a $9 million 5-story parking ramp. I know there may be opportunities to do something other than that, but we do want to start generating enough revenue to help pay for more parking infrastructure. Right now, so the study suggests if you add these additional paid parking spots, you would increase revenue by $100,000 a year. I think that takes us up to approximately $270,000 a year, and that's for 45 hours of enforcement a week. If you go 8 hours, if you go till 8 o'clock on the weekdays and until 8 p.m. on weekends, you're adding another 39 hours to that total, but you're adding 39 hours that are busier than some of the times we're enforcing the meters right now. So I think it's very realistic that we could get up close to that $650,000 figure a year. So that's where we're at right now. Again, these were just trying to take what we already had in the plan, but really just putting some chronology to it to make it a little more realistic. And so I'd be happy to take any questions about our efforts up to this point.
What's been the reaction of the business community?
Well, so right now we have a couple, our committee has 2 business owners, prominent business owners downtown. They're very, very enthusiastic about this. They're dealing with their customers not being able to find parking, and I think they're looking at this as a good opportunity to change that. I think they recognize that perhaps some of their employees are doing, my shift starts at 5, I pull right in front of wherever I work, and I pay for 1 hour of parking at 4, and I can sit there until 1 in the morning. I think they're recognizing that they would like to see that change as well. So it's been very positive up to this point.
Good. Let's see. Have you discussed anything about shuttles or anything like that for a short-term?
No, we have not gotten to that yet. You've mentioned that, and you and I have discussed that as well. I do think that's would be a good addition, particularly during major events. Having that shuttle available for somebody to park, whether it's in a big box store lot up on top of the hill. The parking study does have a recommendation as it relates to boat trailers, and finding some way for them to be able to park up on top of the hill and then come down. That study does assume, though, that we have Uber, which we don't. I've contacted them and said, "Are you crazy? Why aren't you here?"
Well, Joyce, if I can interject, as I said last time, we want to focus completely on the parking issue and not that shuttle issue. They're somewhat related, but we need to stay on task of accomplishing this parking fix, if you will, before we start interjecting any more ideas on top of it. I think it's completely separate, that we focus completely on just parking right now. I understand what you're saying, but we've been spinning our wheels for over 30 years on this.
Yeah,
and
no,
we need to go forward.
I can't argue with that part of it. I just, one of the things that, when my husband was talking to one of the business owners, and some ideas that she had were, are there any shuttles from the senior center, in senior homes downtown to take them shopping downtown, to encourage more shopping in the downtown business district? Then they aren't going to be taking up parking spots if there are shuttles that are bringing them. But anyway, I think this is a good start. So then, have you discussed, your hourly rate for parking?
We've discussed it briefly. Right now, we don't have a recommendation in terms of increasing the rate hourly. We have increasing the number of spots we're enforcing and the number of hours we're enforcing, but we have not discussed a rate increase right now. And really the study said kind of an either or. You know, you increase the amount you're charging or increase the number of spaces you're charging for, but we had not talked about a rate
Okay.
increase yet.
Yeah, and some of these smart meters can actually change the rate for different hours, so that the busier times they can charge more per hour for those as well.
That's the one thing the business owners to this point have not had much of an appetite for, was the rate increase.
Rate increase, okay.
They did not have an issue with more enforcement, didn't seem to have an issue with more paid spaces, but every time you bring up a rate increase, there's a little bit of hesitancy.
Yeah.
It's just, the kind of the discussion is, the rates say something about yourself as a community. Are you still a welcoming smaller town that, wow, that beautiful historic downtown district? Or are you, once you hit a certain amount, you're like, well, welcome to the Minneapolis-St. Paul ball game.
Yeah.
So it really is a psychological thing as it relates to rates, I think, even more so than hours of enforcement.
And I'm not advocating for
Sure.
high rates or anything like that, but I'm just wondering what, has that come up?
It has come up, yes.
Okay.
It came up at our last meeting.
All right, yeah, so whatever you do, the business, I'm glad that the business owners are involved in the decision-making process. I think that's really important, too.
Yes.
Blake, so a couple of questions. On going to 7 days a week, how does that stack up with other communities? Are other communities doing 7 days a week, or?
It will depend. I think much depends on the community and when it's busy. And I think we're in this interesting situation, and perhaps unique and different than a lot of communities, that weekends for us are really busy. It does not slow down here. I think it's about making parking available and keeping people rotating as much as it is the revenue. So I think you come down here on weekends, it's just as difficult to find a parking spot as it is at 6 p.m. on a weekday. So
Sure.
We have not looked, we haven't surveyed what other communities are doing, but just for knowing Hudson and what we're experiencing on weekends, I think it's important that we do so.
I just want to make sure that it's not a detriment, to the community,
Sure.
like making people choose, I don't want to come here. Not that they're spending a lot of money on parking to begin with.
Right.
The license technology sounds interesting, great money saving. The only thing have you been looking at it from a user standpoint? Like, I just want to make sure that from the user standpoint, it's easy, right?
Yes.
It's interesting, the study even says one of the added expenses of going with the license plate technology is signage reminding people to look at their license plate and know what it is when they head up to these pay stations. So
Sure.
I think it will take some time. I think it's a gradual working that in, maybe not as harsh of enforcement as right off the bat. In fact, the study even talks about once we get these new technologies in place, for somebody's first violation, just giving them a courtesy ticket and saying,
Sure.
hey, just a reminder, this is what you need to do. Here are some places that maybe you can park for longer than 2 hours, just so there is a gradual getting used to all of that.
Gotcha. In the meantime, with enforcement on the weekends, does that have an impact to staffing?
Well, that was a
Yeah.
question I was gonna do.
Yeah.
Have you guys discussed how you're going to, because it's gonna cost extra personnel to cover late in the evening and on the weekends, so that's an extra cost.
And one of the things that again, I keep going back to the recommendations, was that technology, that the enforcement be at random hours, that it's not necessarily a car at all times going around enforcing these spots, that it's, if you start doing random enforcement, obviously it is gonna add something. If you're not doing anything on the weekend at all, it will increase the need for staffing, but it would really be one person at a time. It's not, we would not be adding multiple people, but it talks about maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours in the morning, maybe the same in the evening, just so you're increasing. Our goal here really is to not write a ton more tickets is to increase voluntary compliance. So if you make those hours random and people aren't really sure when it's gonna happen, you don't have to staff from 8 to 8. You can choose more selected hours. But yes, it will be an added expense.
And we haven't gotten to that piece yet. We've got to get other numbers into place yet. One of the questions was, or clarifications was, one of your patrol sergeants is in charge of parking, or is it you?
Right now, it's me.
Okay. So there's one of those answers.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, if we do the technology with the plate reader, do we end up keeping that information? And if we do, we've got to store it. That's an open record that we have to have. Where do we store that? That's gonna be an extra cost.
Sure, the services actually provide cloud storage. A lot of the companies that provide this license plate reader and the ticket technology
Right.
do offer an option where you can store it on their cloud, and they say more and more communities are going to that option rather than having to deal with it
Right,
themselves.
but in Wisconsin, there might be a problem with that, I believe. Melanie and I have been checking into cloud storage ourselves, and the state of Wisconsin doesn't allow it right now.
And we'll cross that, because we did just upgrade our servers,
Right.
as you recall earlier.
Right,
And also kind of along Bill's user-friendly. Yesterday's meeting was about the app itself, and it's very user-friendly, both paying and issuing the tickets and vice
Gotcha.
versa.
So they could pay using an app or going to the pay station and putting in a credit card?
I don't recall if the app is for the enforcement,
Ticket,
Oh, for the
yeah,
ask, oh, okay,
yeah.
for the enforcement, okay.
but it's gonna be a user-friendly screen for them to pay their citation on any computer or phone.
Okay.
But where are they paying for the parking? Like, is
The-
that,
At a pay station.
it still is, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
it's
And that's what I
still-
meant by user-friendly, just making sure that the people that are parking, it's easy
Right,
for them to
and
pay.
again, I talked about the 41 pay stations.
Yeah.
If you look at the map there, you can't turn without seeing about 3 of them. So again, I don't know if we need to go that far, but it's trying to make it. And again, if you're trying to make somebody, I don't know my license plate right off the top of my head. I probably should, but it's not an easy thing to necessarily remember. You don't want to make people walk too far. Chief, I have one quick question for you. What that came up yesterday was. The question came about, well, how do you know the address to send someone's ticket to if all you have is their license plate? The question came up about our ability to access both Wisconsin and Minnesota databases for that and the any costs associated with that.
we can do it. We do it all the time when we run our handwrite our regular plates. We send it to dispatch, they run that information, they give it to us, and then we can download it in our system. But
Okay.
we have access to it through the state.
Through Minnesota's
So-
database?
Yeah, we have access,
Okay.
we have access to all 50 states,
Okay,
that's
all
not a
right. You
problem.
do. Okay, all right.
Right. The question comes into play though, like Minnesota, you get a brand new car, and they give you that little stack that's in the back window, and there is no license plate, how does it read that?
That doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. That's
Right.
one of the flaws of the
Right.
license plate reader as opposed to the pay per space. Yes.
Right.
It really the license the technology behind the license plate reader really is in terms of convenience for the enforcement, and then it's a much easier and quicker way to be able to enforce than the pay per space technology, which still would require more manpower than just drive around reading license plates.
Right.
I mean, we potentially could put one in your squad car, one of your squad cars, if you didn't have any to run around and do the enforcement within an hour. Not saying that that's what I want our regular patrol officers doing, but there is that potential to put one in one of the squad cars.
Right. And just in the coordination, I did add that you asked me to get some parking meter fines from other cities. I did attach it to that issue sheet, if you see them right there. The highest end was down to UW River Falls at 15, and Duluth is at 15. Most everybody else is at 5 and 10, and we're at 7. So not a lot of other places that I found had meters.
Oddly enough, River Falls is 15,
Yes.
and you'd said they were a little less than Hudson's, or maybe that was.
No, that wasn't and that's the university specifically.
Yeah.
There are no meters
Oh.
in the city of River Falls
Oh.
anymore, so it's simply that's just the university. So,
Okay.
It was hard unless you went to Minneapolis and St. Paul, and I didn't think that would be,
comparable.
yeah, no. Those fines have got to be astronomical, so.
Any other questions for Blake?
Yeah, when are you looking at re-signing? That's in 2017, re-signing for 7 days?
Well, that would be, that's a good question, and as I look at this and we put this together, I don't know if I would want to move necessarily that's a good question for everybody to discuss is, do you move to 7 days before all this new technology is in place so people get used to it, or is that just suddenly a manpower burden that's out of control if it's 7 days a week till 8 p.m. and you don't have something like license plate reader technology in place? I almost see them simultaneously coming in place, but that's probably a better question for the chief and for others than necessarily me in terms of capability to do it without the technology.
Gotcha.
Well, we have one part-time and one full-time meter reader going on right now, and they do their own data entry, so that takes time off the street. We've got meters that are breaking down, so that takes time off the street. So trying to do it 7 days a week, I think would put extra burden on them that.
Right now, like as is.
Right, they couldn't do it.
I would.
Yeah, we'd have to wait till the new technology got into place.
Sure. I would concur.
Good, any other questions? As we move forward, we'll continue to have the dialogue with this committee and the parking committee, whether it's Blake or someone else.
Yeah. I noticed you've got convert the library, Beach House North and Williams lots to paid parking. I know it would be a challenge to have the library lot as non-paid when everything else is paid, but yet, how do we encourage people to use the library and not burden them with the extra parking?
So one of the recommendations in the study, and we probably should have put on this list and been a little more specific, was at the library having specific spots that are actually free but are much shorter time limit, like a 15-minute or something like that, so people can go in, get whatever they want to do, and be able to drop off a book, check out a book, do something like that without having to pay, and being able to keep those spots rotating quickly. Again, but if you're not enforcing payment down there at all, you're going to get somebody who's going to park there and they're working a 9-hour
Yeah,
shift
yeah.
downtown. And
I understand that, yeah.
So,
I-
but yes, I think that's would be an exception there. Another one that would be, one I thought was a great recommendation too, was making the FIP slot 4 hours. We had the incident recently where people went to go see a performance at the FIPS. The parking limit was 2 hours on a weekday matinee, and everybody came out and there was a ticket waiting for him.
Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
can't, that's,
No,
again, there was the violation
we need
occurred.
those kinds of flexibilities, yes.
Yes, we do, and so within the study, it has a map of downtown and shows what they recommend the different time zones be based on what street or what lot we're talking
Okay.
about.
And with the library, I recently had to go and pick up a book, and a program was going at the time that I decided to go and pick up the book. So I can't remember exactly where I parked, but it was difficult to find a spot because the program was going. So having a 15-minute spot, a few of those would be real helpful.
Yep.
But I'm also concerned about the people who are coming for the program, especially
Sure.
with kids, that they're not burdened with the cost of parking to take advantage of a program like that. So, and I don't have a solution, but I'm just
That's why we're talking.
bringing this up
Yep.
for your discussion.
And once we get all this stuff in place, I'm sure we're gonna be tweaking it for a while.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Blake, for
Thank you.
coming,
Yep.
taking the time. If the committee so agrees, I would like to move up to, is it number 5, your issue?
Yes.
Number 5, and then we'll go back down to the number 7 issue, so these folks can get out of here.
4 is Hanley.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll go number 7. So number 4 is discussion, possible action, traffic safety concerns on Hanley Road, east of Carmichael Road. Bill?
Yeah, so I had some concerns that I'd been hearing in my neighborhood about Hanley Road, and then reached out to Red Cedar Canyon with Nick Peterson, who kind of talked to a lot of his neighbors as well about some issues that are coming up on Hanley in terms of the higher speeds, the higher traffic, now with U-Line in there, Valley Cartage, more trucks, turning into the business park, going westbound and taking a left into the business park and taking up that left lane, waiting for traffic to clear for them to be able to turn. So there's a number of issues that Mr. Peterson kind of wrote about. I don't know if you want to talk through each one of those, Nick?
Yeah, if you go to the mic and state your name and address for the record, and just, we've got it in front of us, so you can just comment on the whole thing altogether.
Yep, so Nick Peterson, I live at 123 Bayberry Court, up in the Red Cedar Canyon community. You have the letter in front of you that the board sent. I'm the treasurer of the Homeowners Association. We have 466 homes within the development up there. And really from our homeowners, we hear concerns about Hanley. We've heard everything from just the condition of Hanley to noise concerns with Hanley up to the safety of Hanley. And with it, we did summarize a number of the things. Probably the biggest, or one of the biggest ones we hear the most of, is the sidewalk up there. Is we do have great walking areas, and whether it's in the neighboring community Heritage Greens, Red Cedar Canyon, across in the Coach Light District. But Hanley is definitely a main area for people to walk. But to walk Hanley, you actually have to cross Hanley twice, and it's a 40-mile-an-hour road, 4-lane road, within that. So a lot of from the pedestrian perspective, we have it's about a 50% maybe older part of our community, that a lot of walkers and so forth from there. Outside of the community, we also have the senior center as well there, which has walkers, and it's been just a concern that has been brought forward to us a number of different times. The other piece is probably just the 4-lane road. That's 40-mile-an-hour road. There's no turn lanes, or very few turn lanes. There's one going into the Heritage Greens at Heritage Lane, I think it is, coming off of Highway 35 there, coming off of 35. There's one turn lane there, but there's no turn lanes to any sort of center turn lane or anything along those lines. And just the mere, I don't think anybody's against the industrial park of any sort. I mean, we all built our homes knowing it was there, but it's more, there's a lot of truck traffic. And within that, with no turn lanes, it takes them, you get a Hultzer truck or one of those out there, it takes them a long time to make it through that road to get up to speed and so forth. So really that's the other part of it, is just the mere amount of traffic in trying to turn and so forth is I guess because of the number of homes we have and so forth, that why we probably hear so much about it. So.
And another thing on top of that, as we've talked about too, is the development of the dog track. How many people exiting the dog track are going to forgo going on Carmichael and then divert to Hanley to 35 to get to a freeway?
Reminding the committee, we have a large traffic study being
Right.
done.
Of
so
Carmichael.
and that intersection, so we've got to be, cognizant of the fact we're going to make decisions off of that survey, that study that
Correct.
comes in, so.
Correct. But this is a question of how many people get diverted. It just increases Hanley. It's just another
Sure.
added piece to it, is all
Sure.
I'm saying.
What
But
it
my
mean-
understanding is that they're not fully looking at Hanley in that instance, right? It's just the intersection? for that
The
study?
intersection is the main focus, yes.
Gotcha.
What immediate action have you guys talked about that you're looking for? Potholes can be filled, I mean, that can be done.
Yeah, and those were recently redone. I see some of those, but
I kind of want to throw it out to the committee and the chief. The crosswalk piece of it, we added flags in front of Heritage Greens. That was, 6 months ago or something like that. But I don't know what the solution is, so I guess I'm looking for ideas. And I don't know, I know that we can't lower, my understanding, lower the speed limit on Hanley. 'Cause
We
that's
can, but we'd have
designated.
to have an engineering study done on it first that would recommend lowering of the speed.
And then we would have to find that money, so you're looking about $15,000 probably, maybe less. And then, in the majority of these things, you're looking for turn lanes, you're got more money,
Right.
Could
You know,
some
so-
of that be put into the
upcoming capital.
the TIF district funds too?
It would be outside of that
Outside
TIF
of that.
district.
Oh, but I thought there were some things that were
Within a half mile.
within a half mile or something, yeah, so we're not,
That would be
so,
outside of those
yeah, we're getting a
bounds,
little
I think.
far from there, okay. There are some grants available for, there's there's a number of problems here but one of them is sidewalks. There's some grants available for adding sidewalks in areas where there's sidewalk missing, is that something that,
I'm sure we could certainly look into that. I mean,
yeah,
I don't believe we've ever specifically had a written request for grants for sidewalks, but I don't know if that exists or
Yeah.
not.
And I don't know if that would be doable. The sidewalk that you have to cross from Red Cedar to Hanley is, I don't know that there's enough space on the cutout area of the
Oh,
hill to put a sidewalk on
Okay.
that would be the north side. You know what I
okay.
mean? So
Yeah.
I think you still have to cross.
Okay,
So we have flags there, we have crossbars.
We have flags at the intersection by Heritage, but I don't know that we do.
Not
Do
now,
we-
but not by O'Neill, no.
So that's a good first action.
Sure. And do we have a crosswalk, you know, the thick lines going across, marked for a crosswalk?
By Heritage.
By Heritage
I can't
there is.
remember I think it just might be a general crosswalk.
Just
down
two
by O'Neill.
lines? So we could do markings of that as well for immediate stuff, but
For immediate,
a
yeah.
lot of this would have to go to capital, finance, and public works if you want to redo crosswalks, turn lanes, and that kind of thing. Reducing the traffic,
I don't see reducing the traffic happening at all. I mean,
not without the study.
right. Or are you saying the speed limit?
The speed limit, I mean, that's what,
Gotcha.
yeah, I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna say, I don't think we can do anything about the traffic, but,
It's been one of those days, right, Carrie? So
So
those
that's-
are all gonna cost money, so it's a matter of what the tolerance is, where do you wanna put it? What do you wanna suggest? Do we suggest to, Public Works that we have them look at what can be done and then come back to us?
yeah. I
We
think
can do
that
the
would be
immediate
right.
solutions now,
Mhm.
no cost.
we need to do something.
There is a crosswalk at Hanley and O'Neill.
But is it the?
It's the marked ones with the bars that go right
Oh, it is.
across, goes to the other side. There's one on both sides. That's
O'Neill
O'Neill.
Okay.
Or no, that's not O'Neill, that's the Heritage Green one, that's right. That's the, no, there isn't one on O'Neill.
So let me,
There's one at the Red Cedar assisted living facility.
why are we crossing Hanley from the resident? Just a question, curiosity.
Why are you?
What would be over there that,
The only way to get down to, to get down to Carmichael and Hanley, so anything
Because
you
there's
have
not
to
a
cross,
cut.
you have to cross to the south to go, or if you, so I'm a runner, so for me, I go Old 35, I'll go a big loop that way. I have to cross down by him, I can't run, you can't run on all the north or all the south, you have to go north, you have to run, part of the sidewalk there, south side of Hanley, then you move back to the north side, then you move back to the south side, so, I think the part that's probably most heavily, just from, living up there, is definitely the part from, O'Neill down to Carmichael Hanley intersection that's a very busy intersection, so for all the residents, off of, whether it's Heritage, whether it's Red Cedar, all of them need to actually cross Hanley to be able to actually go down the hill, so. And then, as you know, Stage Line doesn't have any sidewalk or anything from that, so residents take
Sure.
the
Go to the
Hanley
Hanley
to do
side.
that, so.
okay. So there's a couple different avenues
Yeah.
we need to take here.
Right, so does it need to be recommended to Public Works for the flags
No,
and looking at, okay, that's something that we can just make happen, right? What I am wondering is if it would be worth Public Works looking on the north side of Hamley just to make sure that a sidewalk couldn't go on the north side of Hamley, then I just don't think there's enough of that cut into the hill, but it would be worth somebody looking, I don't
Yeah.
know, making that recommendation,
and that would come from Public Works
Public
and the city
Works.
engineer, yes.
city engineer. And that should be low cost, no cost, I would think.
Depends, well, it costs quite a bit to cut into that hill, so I don't know.
Correct.
But
But to
yes
look
and
at it
no's.
and to, come up with a recommendation whether it could even be feasible.
Yes,
Y-
it wouldn't
that's-
cost anything,
Yeah, right, okay,
in-house.
okay. So, along with that, making sure that the markings are appropriate for that road and the speed. so I guess I'm going into a motion here.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to set the flags at O'Neill, on Hanley, across Hanley. There's 2 locations though, isn't there?
There's O'Neill right by the assisted living there that goes to the south, and then there's O'Neill that goes to the north, down by, by the water tower plant there, so,
So it'd be making sure of those 2 markings, that would be making sure that the markings are good and putting flags at both of those intersections,
Okay.
okay? Also to recommend to Public Works to look at the hill cut on the north side of Hanley, to see if a sidewalk could go in on the north side so that their cross doesn't have to happen.
Are there center markings at that children at play thing up there? Or is that not a good location for that?
Well, there's WL lines in there, so there should be able, you mean putting in those yield signs?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's WL lines in there, so they would be able to put them in the center there.
Which would slow some traffic down.
And that is like a physical sign?
Yeah,
Those are the ones like we have downtown that bend back
Yes.
and forth. They say yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk.
Gotcha.
It's another precaution. It's
Yeah.
not a fix,
Right,
but it's a sign.
right.
Is that part of your motion?
Yeah, that's, yeah, put that in there.
Are you done with your motion yet, or you're still
I
going?
hope so. It's 20 to 6.
All right, I'll second it if you're done.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you should read that back, Melanie, so we know.
So we know what we're saying.
All right, we have a motion to stripe Hanley at O'Neill, both O'Neill intersections.
With crosswalks, not,
Yeah, crosswalk striping. You want flags on both of those?
Flags on both,
Okay, and stanchions at both of those?
yes.
Okay, and have Public Works look at the north side of Hanley at the cutout to see if a sidewalk is feasible. If it would fit.
Correct. Yes. The other thing, maybe we can revisit it again, is the turn lane possibilities.
we would have to.
We'd have to relook at that.
There's really nothing we could do without a study in place, just say, I want a turn lane, this doesn't go over.
So the next step would be to recommend the study or whatever to be done
Well, yeah.
eventually.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's start with those. That's the motion, you're right.
It would be on Hanley Road between O'Neill Road and Pearson Drive on the north side. Those would be the
Yes.
2 roads.
Yep.
There's O'Neill, and then if you go through the cut, it gets to Pearson Drive right there.
Yes, right.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Any other questions?
Nope.
You feel free to have a seat if you want. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Kurt, were you here for any particular issue?
Corey's here for item number 8.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get there real quick here.
I would say on that library issue, just to interject a little bit, you might wanna check with the library should be involved in that. That's gonna be a really sticky thing with that parking. It's already bad at the library.
I know, it is bad.
It's very bad.
Okay, we've,
So that's,
point taken. Number 7, discussion and possible action to conduct a winter plunge on Saturday, February 17th, 2018 at 8 a.m. in Lakefront Park. Carrie, if you want to, yep, podium, name and address for the record. Maybe you want to tell us who your
If
henchmen
it's a
are,
Minnesota address?
even though it is.
Okay, perfect. Carrie Rambo from Alameda, Minnesota. I work at Hudson Hospital and Clinic, but I'm here today with some fellow Rotarians to represent the Hudson Rotary Club, which our club meets on Thursdays at noon. So we have 2 different clubs in the city. And we're here today to get your support on an action plan of a potential fundraiser for our particular club. a little back history about philanthropy and Rotary is one of our core guidelines that we try to achieve is to give back to the community. So we're not necessarily a nonprofit, but we do raise funds to invest back into the community. And we do have fundraisers separately as our clubs, and we also have joint fundraisers. And this one would be a separate fundraiser specifically for Hudson Rotary Club. So to what degree, you guys have all this, to what degree do you want me to?
Just give us executive summary. And
Yeah,
then
executive summary.
If they have
So-
some questions, they can jump in.
So this event is a model from Forest Lake. You'll see the packet, it's pretty much everything that Forest Lake is doing, and they've given us their blessing to use this model here in Hudson. It's an event that we want to have the third weekend of February. It would be located at Lakefront Beach. We asked for support from the emergency services chiefs and got very good support from them. We want to have a Friday night registration, a Saturday night or Saturday morning plunge, or right around noon plunge. And essentially what this fundraiser will do, it's individual giving. So it's similar to any other thing that you go on the account, you ask your family and friends for support toward your cause. This would give Hudson Rotary the opportunity to increase their volume of charitable giving to the causes either they already support or some new causes that they don't support, if that makes sense. So we can broaden our range of charitable support, which is really needed now for a lot of these smaller organizations that are trying to survive in our community.
Any questions up to now?
No, I've already heard this at the park board meeting, so, and the park board was.
Much shorter today, aren't I?
What's that?
I'm much shorter today.
Yes. But they were supportive.
Yes, we got the support of Parks Board last week, and we just want to move forward and go through any protocols we have to do before we ask you for approval and then recommendation to go to Common Council.
I don't know, Marty, if we've got any particular, obviously the liability insurance, all those, that type of thing, who you're gonna have in the water, if anybody helping them out, waivers, I don't know, all that kind of stuff.
Yep, we're taking the model exactly from Forest Lake, so we'll have the waivers. We have support from the dive team, so what's really a benefit to us is EMS and the dive team are volunteers for the Eau Claire plunge, and so they bring that expertise to us during our planning. So they know exactly what to do, they know their involvement, what they should do. It's really, it's gonna be a good partnership.
Okay. And I think insurance would be the biggest thing the city attorney would have.
Correct.
So we would go through those questions.
Correct, and you have a copy right now of our insurance.
Yeah. Did you have any concerns?
No, we met to discuss this prior to her putting this all together, and then I had her meet with the other chiefs in the dive team, and they're all on board from what I understand. In fact, the dive team and rescue team, I think, were ecstatic about it. I think they thought this was a good opportunity to do something. So, yeah, Brandon's not here, so you're good. And again, being the first year, I don't think you anticipate 1,000 people, no. It'll be a small one, so it'll be something that we can find out if this would work or not. So I think they put a lot of plan and effort into it, and I think it would be a good event to at least give it a try and see what happens.
I know Mr. Zulli was at the park board, I'm assuming. Is he on board to help you guys with
Yep.
what needs to be done down there?
100%. He was very excited to try something new here.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I'll make the motion to approve the event, and then that would send it to the council, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Carrie, and
Thank you.
fellow henchman. Yeah. Thanks, Buck. If you don't mind, we'll go to number 8, discussion, possible action to conduct the Kelly Schmidt Charity Run on Saturday, September 9th, 2017 at 9 a.m. in Lakefront Park.
Thank you.
If you'd state your name and your address for the record.
I'm Corey Johnson, 836 Stewarton Drive. Woodbury, Minnesota also. We are hoping to run a 5K benefit run for the Schmidt family. They're actually in North Hudson. I know the Schmidts that from working out at River Center Athletic Club, a high utilizer there, as well as the Schmidts are. We had hoped to do this benefit a little ways down the road and have a lot more time to plan and whatnot, but due to the progression of her cancer, we are having to move everything up with the benefit. 6 weeks ago, she woke up with a stomach ache. Since then, she's been diagnosed with stage 4 endometrial cancer, and it's now in her lungs and several of her other organs. So that's the rush on getting it going here already on September 9th. I kind of walked Chief Jensen through everything, and so I appreciate you guys seeing us on such short notice. We are trying to work everything through. So I presented you with a map here.
It's coming around.
Chief Jensen's concern was us keeping it off of the roadways. Matt and Mariah Fisher did approve that, we could use anything, whether it's start and finish up there, but by not using the road, we would end up starting it directly across from the back side of Riverfront and utilize the park side. So basically, the course would start directly across from Riverfront at the Lakefront Park. We would go all the way down to St. Croix Street, do a circle in the dirt parking lot there. I think it's the place of the garage where the cones can be picked up or whatever, I'm not sure. And then come back, and we would actually go down behind the beach house and then come up, go all the way down the dike, come off the dike, and in order to get it all the way to the 3.1 miles that we need, we would then come off the dike, circle around the band shell, and then back to the same place that the start was, just a little bit further past there. One of my questions was, I did run it off last night. It appears that there's some construction on the sidewalk right now at the beach house, but it appears that it's done and that the barriers are still up, maybe just waiting for the concrete to cure. I'm not sure.
I believe that's gonna be done before September.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does appear that it's all done. It appears that the concrete's all laid and it just might be curing or whatever. So that would be the only impediment on the current course that we are looking at. So.
How many folks do you expect?
I don't know. The Schmidts have a huge group of friends and followers. I know we, as part of the larger part of the benefit, I did a pre-order on the T-shirts, and we had 186 adult T-shirts ordered, and I think we're at about 42 kids T-shirts, so more than we expected. And a 5K race, unlike a half marathon and other bigger races, you're drawing from family, friends, grandparents, and you get a lot of walkers.
Sure.
So, I'm hoping 200, but it's a total guess. I mean, you could have 30 people, you could have 300 from people talking amongst friends and whatnot, so there's no way to anticipate how many.
Okay.
Yep, it's all contained in the park, so I don't see it to be an issue. And September 9th, school's already started, Labor Day's over with, the park is not gonna be as busy as it normally would be, so
Yeah.
9 o'clock in the morning, I think it'll be just fine.
Any questions?
Would you
Okay.
potentially do a staggered start depending on the number of people that arrive?
We could, but I really don't see, I've run, I've actually put on several 5K courses over in Woodbury, and I've never had to do a stagger start on any of them. And I've had, 320 people, I think, was our largest one.
Gotcha.
A couple of years ago. And, with that, you don't need to do a staggered start. I mean, basically, you're telling people, stay on the right going out, stay on the right coming back. And, I'll put cones out, like going down on the pier, just cones down the middle of the pier, so pedestrians and boaters and whatnot still have total access to it. And we just have the runners go out on the right and come back on the, and, we tell them at the start, to please be aware of, the pedestrians and whatnot out there. And we've never had any issues,
Right on.
so.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any concerns?
No, I fully support it. I know Matt and Mariah have done races before and benefits, and I think it's a great cause, and I mean, thank you for doing it in a short notice. It's nice you guys to take up the cause, so I think it'd be good.
I got one thing though, Cory. Is it okay if we use chalk in certain areas, like on turns, that's okay?
Oh, yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, 'cause we probably do a little bit of that.
It'll wash off. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We'll recommend to council for approval.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back up to the original schedule. We are at the number 3.2, discussion possible action on a downtown valet parking. Joyce, is this you?
Actually, I didn't ask about valet parking, I was asking about shuttles, so.
Well,
um,
We took it off the minutes that you wanted to talk about valet park.
Oh, really?
Well, considering time, we should bring it up next time. We can
Okay, that's fine.
take that off. So did we do 4? We did. So discussion on number 5, discussion possible action on speed control on Grandview Drive. Marty, you can start. Jim, I assume this is yours, if you want to.
Well, I was notified by Deb Anders from Public Works that Alderperson Weber had requested the Public Safety Committee take a look at the speed issues on Grandview, even especially with the new construction being completed, and take a look at possible control devices or maybe some traffic calming and things that could be put in there, so, like such as the pedestrian signs or the speed signs and so forth. So that was the reason I put it on.
Jim, do you want to take the stand?
Sure. It's both my personal experience, our personal experience, and a lot of our neighbors that before the construction, speed is getting pretty high on Grandview. They come around the corner. There have been times when I've been barely able to make it across the road across the halfway point before they came around the corner, and they yell at me for jaywalking. So it's, but I asked it during the discussion about the project if there was anything that we could do to alleviate that, and so here it is. And what I have is my resident expert on bike safety, Marion, who is already working on a project looking at putting bike markings on Grandview, more than just for the safety aspect, but for the total picture of that. So.
Well, you're talking about traffic calming, right?
Traffic calming, yes.
Okay.
And
Not biking issues right now.
no, but you, in the presentation, you'll see that there is a traffic calming methodology here. So it's.
What?
I also asked to be on the agenda, not knowing anything about this, because I have spoken with both Tom Zulli and Mike Johnson about being on the agenda.
Yeah. We had a full agenda. It can go on the next one as well, but I want to know what you're looking for, Jim, as far as safety, calming up there.
We need to, we just need to look at methodologies to, is there a way that we can do this reasonably, inexpensively, quietly, that just keeps this as, it's a neighborhood, it goes through a neighborhood, but yet it's a major street.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the whole, from Vine to the I-94, it's a neighborhood street.
So,
And yet it carries a lot of traffic, so we wanted to start looking at how can we make this manageable. And there are techniques that are being used in a lot of cities to do this.
and that's a presentation you have?
That's a presentation that Marion has, and she
Okay.
has folders for you.
I don't want anything about bikes. I want traffic calming issues. That's what this is about. That's what it says on the agenda.
Okay. Putting bike lanes
We'll
on
talk
either
about
side does help.
pedestrians. Okay, what I'm asking for is that I don't know quite how to do this, because I legitimately asked for this and went through the right channels to get on the agenda. Jim says he didn't even ask to be on the agenda. So it's kind of confusing for me, and I pulled this information together, and it does talk about bikes, because, and if you want me to continue to not say bikes, I'll say or something.
If we're talking about safety
It is
on
safety.
Grandview, I don't want issues about bikes. If it's germane to the conversation, fine.
Okay. Grandview Avenue, as it runs through across our north and south, is a street that has a lot of access to a lot of different things. The schools, churches, businesses.
Sorry,
Is time up?
my alarm.
And there is a traffic issue on Grandview. And actually, you were talking about stuff on Hanley, was it? This whole subject fits right in with Hanley too, because what it is basically is talking about road diets. And part of what road diets can include is bike pedestrian lanes.
Tell me, road diets, I'm not familiar with
Road
that term.
diets is a methodology to take a road, an existing road, it can be anything from 2 to 3 to 4 to actually 6 lanes, and modifying that road to limit the actual structure of the lane to be 11 feet wide as opposed to 12, 13, or 14 feet wide. And the story around that is that creates a much more safe road. It automatically slows people down. People are paying more attention. It gives the opportunity to make a more inviting, welcoming road for all users, not just cars. And you're talking about that up on Hanley. The information I gave you a lot of information, a lot of it that if you take a look at it, you can start to get some ideas from it. And I don't know how to do this thing about the bike lanes because I am requesting bike lanes on Grandview Drive as part of a road diet process.
That is not this committee's issue. Public Works would have to take that up.
Okay, well, I was told to bring it up here. But in your information that I had and that Chief Marty has, there's information on road diets. And I think it would be very, very beneficial to your questions about even working with Hanley, about how to, with paint, make the roads more safe. And on here, I didn't give you guys this because it's 40 pages, but talking about different cities that did road diets projects, and in the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan, the objective was to improve business environment, commercial activity, and sales, increase parking. That's not the best one for this subject, but the benefits were slower speeds, improved livability, and increased travel time. Of course, in a business area, that like that trucking thing, that travel time would be big for them. Grand Rapids, Michigan, another street, install bicycle lanes, improve safety, accommodate needs of school bus and transit bus stops. Results was it improved roadways for bicyclists. A little bit nervous because I got kind of thrown a curve. Slower speeds, address transit needs and congestion concerns. So I would give you this too. It's 40 pages, so I didn't do it for everyone. But the whole thing about Grandview is that when people come around the corner from Vine Street to Grandview, I need water. They kind of take off. By the time they get to our house at 6:04, they're way over the speed limit. And I can't count how many times, because we dog sit, I've been across the street, looked up there, there's no car, I'm halfway across the street and there's a car right in front of me. So that's not a really good driving practice. Grandview also has a lot of curves. So sight lines aren't good, they're really bad. And doing something, thank you, a road diet project on Grandview would greatly enhance the safety of the street, the livability of the street, make it a more welcoming street. It has access to everything, EP Rock, the YMCA, the high school, Wisconsin Street. And if I'm at the wrong place to be requesting bike lanes there, I'll go to the right place if you just tell me where to go. But it's a wonderful project, a neighborhood project to improve bikeability and walkability. The sidewalk that's there, talk about safety. everyone rides on that sidewalk because the road's too dangerous. If we were to put bike lanes, and I'm not suggesting the design of these lanes, I think that can be determined on Grandview, people wouldn't be riding on that sidewalk with potentially running into dogs and kids and everything else that's on that sidewalk. It's very, very busy, and even now with the construction, it's been busy all the way through the construction. So that's my ask. And if it's not an appropriate ask for public safety, I think it kind of falls between the cracks of public safety and maybe something else.
I think it needs to go to Public Works, because public safety, we would probably look at saying, or doing, yeah, we agree with where you're gonna put it, but they need to decide where to put it, if it's even feasible. And I think we're kind of cart behind the horse here, because the project's just about done.
No, actually, it's at a point, right, it's paint. It's just paint.
Yeah, so I think it needs to go to Public Works, not here.
Okay, I'll collect my little
But
things and,
Back to the original agenda item, as it stated, was Jim's request for traffic taming.
and this is the same thing.
This is probably the least expensive traffic calming
Paint?
to do.
Paint,
Mhm.
right. And
Yeah, narrowing the lanes slows the traffic,
Right.
and,
it's beautiful. We could do it in other places in town too, and create wonderful connectivity for people biking and people walking.
Well, outside of the issue right now, I think this one should go to Public Works while they're in the middle of the project, and we can go review the information for our next meeting for other issues throughout the city in regards to traffic taming.
Do you want this thing I was telling you
Make an
about?
electronic copy of it?
Actually, I can recopy all of this. I think there's a lot of stuff in there about road diets.
Mhm.
So
If you just want to email it to me, and then I can send it out to the committee.
it's there.
The 40 pages is in here?
No, the 40 pages, I'll give it to you and you can make a copy of it. I was only going to do one.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's a link to it, we can just go to it and read it online too.
All right, and I'll make sure it gets back to you.
Any
Randy,
further discussion?
What I was told is that what got brought up in the Public Works meeting was putting in such as the pedestrian lights, the markings on the roadway for pedestrians, and the speed sign is what I was told.
Yeah,
So that's the reason I had this item put on the agenda, so,
That was Mr. Zuli's idea.
okay.
But he doesn't
well,
like those lights. So he says.
I'm seeing those as, we got 3 school crossings on that street. 4, actually, one we have a light on now. But others mostly keep adding those things at $5,000 to $10,000 crack. Because it normally controls it at that point.
okay, so,
This is a road is used all the time, it's not just school.
Yeah.
it's crossing.
okay,
And
so
road
this
diets-
needs to go back to Public Works, and you need to ask him about this diet,
Well, the road diet is a safety.
and then talk about the paint with that, and then we can conjoin the conversation at a different time. Because this has been presented completely different than what it was agenda item as.
You want all the folders back?
You know,
Or you just
so
want one back?
we're going to move on to the
All of
next item.
Okay.
Well, I'm giving.
Did you want to formally move that? Do you want to formally move that to Public Works?
I'll make the motion to move it to
I'll get
Public
it
Works.
at the end of the
I'll
meeting.
second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thanks.
Can I get the folders back then?
Marion, well, it's going to go to Public Works,
Yeah,
and then it'll come here at the right time.
and I apologize, I was told to come here.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
And for the confusion, because Jim and I are looking at each other and saying, what?
That's what he's looking for.
I believe we're on 6, discussion possible action to conduct the second annual Youth Action Hudson Trick or Trot 5K Run Walk on Saturday, October 21st at 9 a.m. in Lakefront Park.
This is the same one that was last year's event. It was actually during the week, it was on a Tuesday evening. They had about, I think when she sent me the email, they had about 45 people or 35 people. They're expecting about 45 this time. It's all contained in the park itself. The race starts and ends in the park, doesn't go on the city streets. And we didn't have any issues with it last year, and I would recommend to the committee to approve it again.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We'll recommend approval. Number 8, I believe we're on?
Nope. Nine.
9, discussion possible action on the EMS funding. Joyce, and I believe we all received a copy from Marty of your
Okay.
bullet points.
Yeah, all right, well, I made an extra copy of it, but, so if anybody wants one. Here, I can hand it over there. Okay, so, did you have a chance to look through it, and do you have
I
any?
have it here.
Okay, so,
Molly's got
is it
one.
necessary, do you have any questions about it? I don't want to go through it point by point if you
Not necessarily
think-
this one. My biggest concern was at that EMS committee meeting, they want to do a 1-year trial run of option 3, is that correct?
What they said at the EMS commission, they were concerned about getting started on option 3 because the whole, you're talking about the whole plan for option 3,
Right.
and they had concerns about that.
The 5-year.
Right, so they were more concerned about, or they wanted to focus on year 1. So I think what we have to do is make a recommendation. Now, their next meeting is not until the middle of September, so we'll have another meeting before they meet. And I think that it would be a good idea for us to make a recommendation to them at our next meeting.
Well, we need to do it a little faster, I think, or maybe we have to have a special meeting. We just got another resignation of a full-time paramedic.
Yes, I heard that from Brandon, so.
We are not gonna be able to find and hire quality employees without the right pay and with
Exactly.
a 1-year thing saying up in the air. We're not gonna retain employees for 1 year.
No, and that's one of the concerns that we have is we're turning into a training ground rather than a career path, and,
So I think Mr. Knapp's on the EMS commission from the town of Troy, his judgment is misplaced on the direction that we need to go to have a viable business. And if you recall, he was on the opposite side of this discussion. I think we have to make a decision faster
okay,
than what the EMS is. Otherwise, we're not gonna have an EMS worth fighting for. People are gonna leave, just like you said.
yes.
So where are we at knowing that information?
Well, all right, so we need to start implementing option 3 the first year of that.
Okay?
But we need to adjust the paramedic pay to $23 an hour instead of the 21 that was in option 3.
So we should have had Brenda here tonight.
Pardon?
We should have had Brenda here tonight.
Yeah.
She's on vacation. She's on vacation.
Oh, well, that explains that.
So anyway, what we need to do is, we need to recommend a short-term plan to the EMS commission that is based on option 3, but we have to call it something else so that it's not confused with adopting all of option 3. So we need to call it a short-term plan, and then, so I'll be meeting with Brandon and Josh, and then Jim is also.
If this committee recommends option 3 moving forward, what the EMS can do? What can they do? They're an advisory committee, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
I mean, we have to make this decision, we gotta do it the right way, so
So what is the usual, are we to recommend things to the EMS commission, or is the EMS commission supposed to be recommending it to us, or are they, are we
they're
both feeding
advisory,
into the,
they
into the
advise
city
to what
council?
they want. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, you've been on it long enough, or Marty, or Scott. We make the decision as public
Mhm.
safety to pass on to the
Council,
full council,
okay,
not the EMS commission. Now, we're trying to be nice and listen to our partners' needs.
yes.
At the same time, we have a business and our constituents to address,
Mhm.
and we heard very loud and clear the direction they want us to go.
Yes.
That's
Okay,
what we should be charged with doing.
okay, then I would say that what we should recommend to council would be implementing the first year of option 3. But with the change that we implement, that we start at $23 an hour for the paramedics, so that we can hire the paramedics that we need.
What's gonna keep us what are we gonna be, Jim, if you wanna interject, yeah. Then I'll have a question.
Are we talking about implementing it September 1 or October 1, as early as possible?
We need to raise the paramedic rate as soon as possible so that we can hire the people that we need. Yeah. We need Brenda's numbers in order to know
We
what.
can't make that, I would rather see the numbers first, but
Yes, I know.
when she's back, do you know when she's
She'll be
back?
back on Monday.
We should probably meet again, or at least shoot an email out or contingent on something. We should probably meet again.
Let's meet again.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
important enough to meet
Okay.
again.
Mm-hmm.
So until we get that number and what it looks like budget-wise, and
Yes.
the model,
Yes, because we need to know what to recommend to the city council to pay for this.
right,
Mm-hmm, I understand.
so we should do that. Is that your question?
Yeah, no. And Brenda is now meeting with us on a regular basis. She's so important to giving us the direction and telling us
Right.
what are we doing here.
So our next meeting is Friday the 18th, but,
Which meeting is that?
so that would be Brandon, Josh, Brenda, Jim, and me.
Okay,
So we should probably have a public safety meeting shortly after that then. Well, actually, we've got the city council meeting the following Monday. So,
second one of the month, so.
so we can see if we can, when is Brenda back? Is she back on Monday?
Yes.
Okay. So, and is Josh gonna be back on Monday? Brandon, I'm sorry. All right, so, yeah, Josh will be back Monday too. Oh, yes. So, my schedule's pretty open if we wanna have a meeting sooner than that.
We need to get the business, she comes back on the 14th, the business model, you guys meet on the 18th. You want a quick morning meeting, evening meeting on the 17th again, or?
We could do the 17th, if we can move up our meeting. Yeah, let's set the public safety meeting, and then we'll just make sure that
That'll
we
be
get
the only thing on
we get
the
another meeting.
agenda.
Okay, all right.
Special public safety meeting agenda.
5 o'clock Thursday, the 17th?
Yeah.
Okay,
Does that work for you, Bill?
I'm looking.
Everybody else?
I just have a quick question, about option one. If I remember right in that, there was remodeling of the Ward Avenue property and EMS moving up there. Is that still in play with option one?
in option 3?
Or option three, I
Yeah.
apologize. Because it does have a direct effect on the fire department. And I think if we look back a little bit, I believe originally they were gonna be in Ward April of 2016, then the talk started, and then it kind of put everything on hold, but, because there are other periphery effects from this, and directly affects us, and even how we do business too, so it'd be nice for us to know kind of what direction facilities is going, and if that's still
Okay.
part of option three, because we kind of need to know too, so it'd be helpful for us.
Has the EMS commission looked at even, talking about even us loaning money from the city besides what we saw
They didn't say
about the
anything,
building?
they didn't say anything about that.
Everything in option three, when it was laid out to city council the first time, includes everything. Includes the renovations to the building.
Well, then we'll just keep it
Mhm.
as is then. Okay, I don't wanna recreate anything different.
Because we did, in somewhat of a timely manner, last fall, when we ended up going with our study, at the same time, we also put out for RFPs for remodeling. So, if they end up moving, we still got all those from David Gray. We still have all those are in play, and I would think that we could probably still go off of those if we decided to stay and we're gonna remodel the fire station. So it'd be kinda nice to know where we're at with that too, just so we can kinda not have to redo and put the RFPs and everything out again. I believe we could probably still, especially if we're within a year time frame, revisit those people who submitted them and
We
not
should
have.
bring that back, bring that to that meeting on the 17th.
Okay. I just trying to know what direction you need us to do and where we can help too, so, thank you.
We kinda gotta need to circle it all the information back to us and then go from there.
I will not be here on the 17th, however.
That's okay, send it
Yeah,
out.
it didn't have anything to do with me, but I just want to let you know I wouldn't be here.
Where are you going, vacation again?
No, the annual Dick's Bar and Grill fundraiser for public safety. It's our year to get it,
Oh,
so I'll be there.
Okay.
No. They have a golf tournament, and then they raise money for fire one year, EMS the next, and then us.
Anything else?
The last time we got it, we got
No, I think,
$12,600 from them, so.
unless you have questions about,
So we should be able
about
to
this.
focus everything then
No.
before you guys meet
I'm
again
going.
on the 18th.
Yeah, some of the things that, one of the things that came up was that Brenda suggested that we have an out-of-service area rate, so we've got we have a non-resident and a resident rates, but also an out-of-service area rate might be, useful as well.
The whole
and-
highway.
Mm-hmm, yeah, well, yes,
There's a big study right now that says that charging resident, non-resident rates doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. For in terms of payback.
yeah, something else that we're looking at, Brenda sent us information on the, senior housing areas and how many, runs are, involved with those, and I haven't had time to analyze the results, except that there's a lot of runs that originate from the senior housing. So,
See, you looked at, has anybody contacted the town of Warren?
not yet. They meet on the 21st of August, I guess, so I've got to find out more about that.
Okay.
And whether they're meeting at the same time that our council's meeting,
Okay.
so.
Well, good, this is good information. We can all focus in and on next week then.
Okay.
Or, yeah, next week.
So August 17th at 5 PM.
Yes.
Yes.
You just want to leave the same issue sheet, funding for EMS?
That's fine.
All right.
Just that.
All right.
And we want to make sure Brenda's here.
Yes,
Mhm.
please.
And if I get chased back here for my project, will I be told that I can't do it again?
Not at that meeting. Okay, any other questions about EMS? Okay. Number 10, discussion possible action to allow goats in the city for specific purpose.
Yes, Catherine, on Tuesday, gave me her draft of the ordinance regarding to allow goats to come in and be used for erosion purposes of invasive species. I think everybody got it, took a look at it. Basically, in a nutshell, it allows people to have goats on their property twice a year, not to exceed 30 days each time, to get a permit for it so that we know where the goats are at, that they have to be fenced in. We did put on here that the goats should not be allowed in a vacant lot because there's nobody there to keep an eye on them if it's in a vacant lot, so we put that subsection in there. Obviously, the liability. Again, people have to get a permit. We weren't sure about how to do the inspection on it. We used basically the chicken ordinance as a draft for this, so the person would get a permit from the clerk's office. Either the building inspector or the code enforcement officer would go check the property to make sure there was invasive species there and so forth. They would pay a $25 fee for each time. They could have up to 15 goats on the property, but no more than that. There's also provision in here, if there was a homeowners association that had rules on it, that had to have written permission from the homeowners association to have that. The permits were not transferable. Hudson PD would be obviously the people that would do the inspections and the code enforcement on it, should there be any problems. And then there was the penalties on it. She did change the definition in section 99-1 for livestock to allow goats temporarily to remove invasive species and weeds control. I have met or talked to a couple people that have had this that have had it in the city before we knew about it, and they say that there hasn't been any issues, and goats haven't been a problem, they don't make noise. I think this is a good step. I know the Parks Department is very interested in
Yes,
having
they're
this done.
chomping at the
Yeah,
bit,
they're
so to
chomping
speak.
at the bit to get this done, I took a look at it, we've talked it about a couple times, we made some tweaks, I think it looks pretty good, so my recommendation would be to pour it on to council.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? You guys got a problem with goats? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We'll move that on. Thank you. Number 11, EMS, Fire Department, Police Department updates. EMS.
Don't have any updates, just another full-time medic resigned.
For a higher paying job, so.
Okay. Chief?
Just been busy working with like David Gray at the high school and middle school, trying to get some inspections done before the school year starts. He's been really busy. We've been very busy up there, but there's hundreds of people up there working at once to try and get that done, a lot going, so spend a lot of time up there working on the budget. I'd like to just mention, I think everyone's aware of it, that, Tom O'Connell had this 45 years in something. I think that we can't have public safety without mentioning his name, so thank him again for the service, and had a nice presentation at the council meeting. Also, we're purchasing the 2 new trucks. Again, thank you for the council, the mayor, for continuing to support public safety in the fire department. And also a great year for, I think, the National Night Out. So my 3rd year, I think it's your 4th year. Every year it continues to get better, more involvement. And I just hope that whoever Marty's successor is continues to put some importance into that, because I think it's great for the community, and we're working at, Tracy and I have been talking already for next year, adding some new things, and with Josh and that, so, and everyone I've talked to has been really positive about it, and like I said, as it continues to grow, I think it becomes more of a focal point for the city, so. I guess that's it.
Yeah, it's a nice job. Important to establish that relationship with the public. Marty?
Yeah.
Nice crowd and.
Yeah, we estimated probably over 500. We had a very good crowd. We had great donations, Big
There's no
R's
place to
barbecue, all the food.
Yes.
We ended up running out of drinks and food and everything else, so it worked out very well. We ended up raising $1,600 when it was all said and done, that we gave a check to Youth Action Hudson for, so. Kudos to everybody that showed up, and again, a special thanks to Detective Tracy Hall, who's done an outstanding job every year. She puts this on, and she does a lot of work with it, and she does a really good job, so I want to praise her work. Lieutenant Jeff Willems is finishing up his 5th week. Yes, his 5th week. He's got 5 more to go before he comes back. He's got his New York trip this weekend, so we'll see how that goes. I think he'll have a good time there. Other than that, I can't think of anything else that's going on. I think it's been relatively quiet. We've been busy, we've been steady, but, I do know one more thing I want to mention. Scott, I mentioned it before. School starting next Thursday. There's going to be a lot of traffic. It's going to be a brand new traffic patterns. Nobody's going to be able to get into the back of the school except the buses and the teachers. Everybody's going to have to be out front, so just be patient on Vine Street until the traffic pattern figures its way out. So if you've got to go down Vine Street, if you can avoid it at all costs, please avoid it. It's going to be hectic, so.
Well, they did open up a path in the northeast corner of the school, so that people who are parking back in my neighborhood will be able to get through there and not have to go all the way around or cut through the fence.
So, but otherwise, that's all I got.
Just remind people to be patient up there.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other information? I do want some budgets, and I'll schedule separate times to go through budgets with departments.
You don't want to do the budget for the next meeting then?
Yeah, if
the next
you
meeting.
have it ready, yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, because we have to have them in by the 18th, so that's why I'm saying that we.
Yeah, we want to see them before.
Correct.
Any other information for the next agendas? And then that,
Move to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
You.